Everybody right now, no matter where you are, freeze, stop. What is your posture, except for bathtub girl? Freeze. Are your shoulders slumping forward? Are you sitting up as straight as you possibly can? Are you breathing, beginning with the bottom two? Because our lungs are right. Is it, sir? What should I call you, Mr. Ford? Luke?
Yeah, Luke is fine.
Luke, we have, as you probably know, and I speak, of course, for the audience. If you don't understand what it is, we have 4 lobes in our lungs: 2 top lobes and 2 bottom lobes. So many of us, we either mouth breathe, which has a lot to do with what we're talking about, or we simply breathe in the top 2 lobes of our lungs. If you will try to do this little exercise, this is also good, is when you look down and you breathe in, see if you can get the bottom 2 lobes air first. And it's a technique that I have actually perfected, and it makes a big difference. Now, tell me, what do you think about the importance of oxygen in our bodies, breathing?
Yeah, it's obviously important. So our approach in the Alexander technique is by letting go of unnecessary tension. The breathing will take care of itself. So the Alexander approach is kind of the opposite of like the conscious manipulated breathing of, say, yoga or many breathing techniques. So we're really the anti-manipulation breathing technique. So as you learn to notice and let go of ways that you're hunching, compressing, tensing, and holding yourself, then there will be much more room for your lungs to move, and the breath will come in and out much more easily. So we kind of deconstruct all the ways that people tend to interfere with their breathing, and then if you simply get rid of all those bad habits, then the breathing starts to take care of itself, and it's easy. And so I notice with my students, when I start working with them and they start letting go of these weird tension patterns and holding patterns, that suddenly they start really, the diaphragm starts moving, and I feel their ribs like expanding and contracting, and like they're getting a lot more movement in their torso. So many people are just so rigid because they're so tense or frightened or angry. And then, when you're rigid and tense and frightened and angry, then, you're held, and the lungs have no room to move and to breathe and to get that oxygen.
I agree. Bathtub girl?
Oh, and there's nothing to disagree with. I can keep talking. Yes, it's for people to hear. I don't think.
Oh, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about, get a little bit more get us into the meat of the technique that you teach, maybe?
Okay, so the meat is kind of taking responsibility for your own use of yourself. So just as the way you drive is going to significantly affect your car, and say the way you use your computer is going to affect the health of your computer. Like if you're turning off your computer without shutting down, you're going to damage your computer and it's not going to function very well. Well, if you're like whipping yourself or driving yourself or tensing yourself, if you're using yourself badly, that's going to really affect your functioning. So according to Dr. Janet Travell, who is the personal physician to John F. Kennedy, virtually all head, neck, back pain is caused by unnecessary muscular holding. So virtually all back pain is caused by unnecessary muscular tension. And so if we learn to become aware of how we're tensing in the back, are we holding in the lower back, are we compressing in the upper back, are our shoulders rounding forward, like what are we doing to ourselves? If we're willing and courageous enough to face looking and examining our own habits, and then slowly just letting them go, letting the habits thin and slowly disappear. And if we're willing to look in the mirror, see what we're doing to ourselves, notice what happens when we stand up and sit down, and how we might tend to tip the head back and compress the neck and compress the whole torso, and then try getting in and out of a chair without tipping our head back and compressing the whole torso, and letting go of these bad habits. Then we can come back to our full length and to our full width and take our full space in the world. You look at children, and they usually have such beautiful use of themselves. They're such beautiful posture, and they have so much joy in life, and they love to learn, and they love to explore. And then they start going to school, and they're forced to sit in desks, and they're forced to not move for hours at a time. And by the time they graduate high school, their posture is bad, their attitude's bad. They hate learning. They frequently turn sullen and antisocial. And it's because we put them in these desks and these chairs for many hours a day and forbidden them from moving. And if you simply compare that to cultures where they don't sit in chairs and what beautiful use they have. Like if I was just to show you like 10 random people and tell you that 2 of them, never sat in a chair, you'd be able to pick out those 2 versus the 8 who regularly sat in chairs, because like sitting down, this sedentary culture, sitting down is like as bad for you as smoking. And people who are free and who don't have our Western habits of sitting behind a desk all day, they tend to have really beautiful use of themselves, and they walk elegantly, and they have great posture, and they're filled with energy and life.
This is true. And I think so much of it is posture. It's posture. It just has to do with aligning your body right. Would you agree that's a girl? I mean, we've got to try to do that. And I think that it is a habit. It's a force of habit that we're in bad posture. Why can't we make it a force of habit to be in good posture? And my second question about this is, does the Alexander technique have a lot to do with stretching, or what?
No, there's no stretching, and there really aren't any Alexander exercises. So you don't get, to do things, to do Alexander technique. All you really get to do is to undo things. You get to start doing the things that hurt you and compress you. So we're not really interested in people stretching. What we're interested in is people stop hurting themselves and pulling themselves down, and then the body's natural flexibility returns once we let go of all that unnecessary holding. So it's very frustrating for the Western mind, because we so want to do things. We so want someone to give us a set of instructions and exercises to go do. But the Alexander technique is the opposite of that, because it's all about non-doing, undoing, stopping these bad habits, and then the good habits will just naturally flow from there.
I'm curious now. In America, the typical American diet is full of fast foods and pops or soda or fizzy waters, as you might know them to be. How detrimental do you think soda or pop is to the body? Does the muscle take all that in?
Yeah, I'm sure it's pretty bad, but I have to confess I have no expertise in matters of diet as an Alexander teacher. Now, Alexander teachers tend to take a little more care of themselves, because when you quit debauching your kinesthesia, when you quit ruining your body, then you naturally tend to want to eat a little more healthfully and to be more gentle and considerate with yourself. But the Alexander technique teacher's training has nothing on diet, so I did not receive any instruction there. It does tend to flow. Once you start treating yourself with respect and with some gentleness, you are less likely to want to destroy yourself drinking Coca-Cola and eating junk food. So it's pretty rare that you'll find that.
It's a big problem in the States. It's a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
And obesity is climbing. My 2 daughters, they're homeschooled. They do not go to a public school. Sometimes we just sit on the floor and learn. I tell them to sit crisscross applesauce, because it helps with the muscle tone rather than sitting in a W formation, which is poor muscle tone. That's something that I work on with my children. They have good posture.
Yeah, and they can probably sit fairly easily on the floor, while most adults who sit in desks and chairs a lot, will generally have a hard time just sitting on the floor. They'll start slumping. It's funny that if you sit with support for your back, the back tends to get weak. So if you're used to sitting in a chair, you're used to having that support for your back, so that when it's not there, it's very, very tiring and very difficult for you. So you demand that back support, which in turn makes your back more weak. So it's a really vicious cycle. So most adults cannot sit, comfortably just sitting on the floor, because they